I'm Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
I'm Dimitri Miller with No Zone Diesel.
This is Anthony Rings from XDP.
This is Jaron Holder from Holderdown Performance.
Corey Willis from PPEI.
I'm Drew with D&J Precision Machine.
I'm Pinky.
And you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
Diesel Podcast.
You're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
The Diesel Podcast, the one and only Diesel Podcast.
What is going on, Diesel Nation? Glad you guys could join us for another episode on the Diesel Podcast. You guys are going to love this episode. Before we get to it, we wanted to give you guys some big news. You guys have been asking for more content from our guests, the builders, racers, about new products, all those sorts of things. So we're going to start going to longer podcasts. So instead of 20, 30 minutes, they might be 60 minutes. They could be 90 minutes or even longer. We want to give you guys those details you've been asking for. And also, we have so many guests lined up, so many cool stories, that in order to bring them to you, we're going to have to do more episodes per week. So you're going to start getting notifications on your phone. So make sure you're subscribed on iTunes, YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, The Diesel Podcast, and on Instagram, just at The Diesel Podcast. You can get the latest information on these new guests and the new episodes that we're releasing per week. We also want to tell you guys and welcome Dan's Diesel Performance as a sponsor of the podcast. Those guys have been doing great work for a really long time. They do a ton of things there in the shop, and we're excited to have them on board, be able to talk with them, see what is new, what new things are bringing to the market. So we wanted to welcome them, and they're a guest on today's podcast. And Danny Voss, he drove there. He drove to Dan's Diesel. He's sitting there right now, ready to sit down with Dan, talk to him about trucks, UCC, and go through a 650 horsepower LBZ build. And, not just throwing parts at something, but building it reliably with the power that you want and also not breaking the bank. So, Danny, I'm going to sit back, crack a beer, handing the mic over to you.
All right, Patrick, thanks for kicking it over to us. I have a guest here that I traveled to today, personally came here to the shop, so to speak, sitting in the office of Mr. Dan Clark from Dan's Diesel Performance. How are you, Dan?
Pretty good, Danny. How are you?
I'm doing great. You were at the UCC this weekend, is that right?
Yeah, we were.
Holy cow. And rumor had it that you guys had a pretty big booth there.
Yeah, we had a very large booth, it was like 80 feet long. Had two of the trucks that we've worked on on display, and 4 tables of all the products that we offer.
Holy cow. A lot of traffic out there at the UCC then?
Yeah, it was pretty decent. I think with the qualifiers going on at the same time as the competitors, I think it kept more people in the stands, in some parts of the day. So I think traffic could have been a little bit better, but the weather was great, and really couldn't complain about anything, really.
You mean it wasn't 30 degrees this year?
No, or windy, yeah. It was a little windy on Friday, but Saturday and Sunday were really good until the rain came in on Sunday afternoon.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, we'll definitely dive into that a little bit, but I'm glad to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Why do we have Dan Clark on the show today? Well, I'll tell you why. We want to build an LBZ truck to 650 horsepower. And I want to do it without having to call a million shops, and do it and learn the right way the first time. And I'm sure you probably get this phone call all the time.
Yeah.
I figured I'd come in here and chat with you for a minute. So somebody calls you up, Dan, and says, hey, this is Dan with Dan's Diesel Performance. I want to build a 650 horsepower at the tire LBZ, but the hard part is I don't know what kind of products to use. I don't know what I should be doing, and I don't know what can handle what. Mm-hmm. What would you tell this customer specifically?
Are we working with a stock truck, or are we working with something that's already been hopped up a little bit?
All right, there you go. The truck could have a lift pump and 200,000 miles on it.
No? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if the truck is pretty much bone stock, the first thing I would ask the customer is, why do you have 650 in your mind? Because stock turbo, stock injectors, and CP3, as long as they're healthy, we can get 540 horsepower out of that. and from the stock 300 horsepower that it has already at the tires, that's a big jump. So we would start the customer off with Tamiya Live tuning, probably air intake, high flow Y bridge kit, built trans, some exhaust, and see what he thinks about that 540 horsepower range. And if he wants to go above that, to that 650 mark, then we're going to probably set him up with one of our drop-in turbochargers, like a 66 mil. That's a really good turbo that spools good and it tows well, so you can still use it for work and go out and have some fun with it. Then he's going to need some bigger injectors. The stock injectors, they'll max out about 600 horsepower.
Yeah.
Without getting too crazy on the pulse width, which can damage pistons. So probably go to like either a 30% over or a 45% over. Injectors. We do build those in house as well, and either a Sportsman CP3 or a 10 mil CP3 to feed those injectors.
I like that, and you know what? I like what you said about. I'm gonna see how he likes it at 540.
Yeah.
People don't even realize that a 530, 540 horsepower truck is an absolute riot to drive on the road.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more fun to drive a truck like that than a 1,000 horsepower truck that you can't even use.
Yeah.
So it matters the customer. It matters really his ability, with the truck mechanically. But some people, I would go out and say, hey, they might just absolutely love their truck at that level and not need to go higher.
Yeah.
But you said something about a Y bridge. Why is that a big issue for you? What is the Y bridge doing for the truck?
Well, the factory Y bridge, it's all part of the EGR system and whatnot. It bottlenecks down pretty aggressively before it splits to the two intake runners. So what we'll do is we'll take that stock Y bridge out and put in a 3-inch Y bridge to increase the airflow dramatically to both intake runners. So get the air that the turbo is making into the motor, making more power and quicker spool up. There's quite a few benefits.
So around 530, 540, you can see the Y bridge coming apart?
Yeah.
Is that a common number?
If a guy decides to do a cheap EGR, delete or whatever, we do see those Y bridges blow out.
You mean one from eBay or something?
Yeah, those eBay specials,
Yeah.
One from China. We do see those blow out a lot, and when it blows out because the truck's a total turd.
Yeah. So you go to what you say a solid one piece?
Yeah. We work with HSP.
Okay.
And,
who is? Can you tell our listeners HSP? I obviously know who HSP is, but who is HSP and what do they do?
HSP is a fabrication company over in Michigan. They do all sorts of fabrication for Y bridges and turbo setups, single turbos, twin turbos, traction bars. They do a real awesome job. Pretty wicked builds. You'll see their kits in Diesel World and Diesel Power magazines all the time on some of their customers' trucks. And Joe and his crew, they make a real solid product. So we get their billet Y bridges, and we'll do some of our own piping. The cold pipes and intercore pipes, intake, stuff like that. But,
wow.
We'll put that in there. It's a 2-piece bridge, so unlike the one piece, which can be kind of a pain to install, these drop right in and install very easily.
Gotcha. So you think that your customer just might be happy right there, and let's say, he gets bored of that, and he's driving around, he's like, you know what? I want to go with that 66. Why do you choose that size? What is it about a 66 that makes it to get to that next level?
Well, we offer 64 mil, which is a step above stock.
Because what is stock, like 63?
60.6.
60.6 on an LBZ.
Yep, 6.6 millimeter on LBZ.
That seems tiny.
Yeah, so going up to a 64 mil is definitely a step up. We rate that turbocharger at 650 horse. So he's, with the 64, he's going to be right at that max, if he wants to get 650.
Okay.
that, as we all know, sometimes people want to go a little bit further.
No, not in this industry.
So we'll set them up with a 66. It spools just as good as the 64. It's a good turbo for towing and daily driving. I mean, your wife can jump in the truck and drive it to wherever she needs to go. I don't have to worry about turbo lag or blowing the tires off, whatever. It's a very awesome turbocharger. So we would sum up with that. That turbo we've rated at 700 horsepower. We've had one dyno out at 734 with big injectors, so there's a lot more potential.
Well, when people say big injectors, like how big are we talking? Like hundreds?
Like 60s, 60% overs.
Yeah, those are big.
Or 100% overs. It really depends on what you're doing with the truck and where you want to be at for horsepower. Mm-hmm. But I like sticking with a little bit smaller injector, like a 30% over or 45. You can keep those a little cleaner, and yeah.
You like them a little smaller. You just think they drive nicer on the road. They don't smoke everything out.
Right. I mean, if a guy does a lot of towing, we recommend a smaller injector, like a 30% over. They're easier to tune. So regardless of who he chooses for tuning, usually most guys can tune those in really clean.
Sure.
And it won't affect his fuel mileage too much. So that's why I would stick with something like that.
Now, is that a myth? People think, and this is a common thread I hear, when you go to let's say a 30% injector, they automatically think fuel increase in mileage.
To an extent, sometimes, because you're going with a nozzle that's been extrude honed out, so that makes the orifices just a better quality to promote better atomization and fit more efficient fuel burn. So with a small injector like that, you can potentially pick up some mileage, if you're nice with the truck.
Okay, that's pretty awesome to know. Mm-hmm. So I know you deal a lot with injectors over here. What's that big old green Bosch machine I saw earlier?
Yeah, so we are a Bosch authorized dealer.
Okay, and before you go any further, that is a very loose term. Mm-hmm. Okay, I see that on like all these companies, like on eBay and stuff.
Yeah.
So how can other companies kind of get away with using that title and still be able to sell their product? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, there's a lot of companies out there that are not Bosch authorized. So they're like you see on eBay, the $900 injector kits for like an LB7. Let's take for example. Those injectors are just pretty much I guess cores that they cleaned up, maybe slapped a new nozzle on, and sent back out the door. So you're buying somebody else's garbage basically. There are companies that get injectors through another party and sell them.
So are they getting them from the junkyard? Where are they getting these cores?
Well, cores can come from just core engines or core buyers. We get core buyers that call us all the time, see if we got stuff laying around, and
sure.
At the same token, they also sell cores, so that's how they make money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's typically how that goes down. And they'll just get cores and freshen them up a little bit and send them back out the door.
Mm-hmm.
And if one is bad, it's not really much skin off their nose because they're not paying for the labor. If you need another one, well, heck, here you go. It's nothing out of their pocket really.
And everybody knows that one injector on an LB7 is a pain in the neck.
It's a pain. Yeah, it's all under the valve covers. So, I mean, if you're gonna buy some like refurbished injectors or like good used injectors, make sure that they are tested on Bosch test equipment and they meet all Bosch's test specs.
So, when you run a test, let's say on the LBZ injector, what tests are you focusing on? What are they called and what do they do actually?
Yeah, so we got the Bosch test bench in our fuel room. Bosch has several different test points, to make sure the injector is doing what it's supposed to do. The first test will be a leak test. So it's going to see if there's any external leaks or the nozzle leaking. If it does, fail it, it's done. It's junk. If it passes the leak test, then it goes into what is called the full load test. So that's your max pulse width, in that engine, model, and it wants to see a certain amount of output, and not deviate too much from that output. And then it'll check the return flow, make sure the injector is not leaking internally, and then it'll go into like an emissions test, which is kind of like your cruising speed, I guess. And then it'll test like pilot injection and your idle injection. And as long as the injector performed right where it's supposed to be or within tolerance, it's classified as a good injector. If it's outside that tolerance, we see quite a bit on used stuff or cheap eBay injectors, then it's failed. So
Wow.
It's time to send it in to be rebuilt by Bosch.
Oh, so you wouldn't actually do any rebuilding yourself?
We don't. We do some basic repairs, in house, like we may replace a solenoid or a nozzle maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the internal workings of the injector, we just let the professionals at Bosch take care of that.
That's awesome, because I'm sure their equipment is a couple steps above because it's in house.
Oh yeah. Their equipment's state of the art, and it is their product, so nobody's gonna know their product
Right.
better than them.
And that is pretty cool. You got like a little mini station to
Yeah.
basically validate and check those
Yeah.
injectors to make
Yeah,
sure
so-
you know what you're selling.
Yeah. So if a customer say he has bad balance rates on his truck, for example, but he's doesn't have too many miles on him, or something's odd about it, he can send the injectors to us and we can test them and see what's going on. Well, maybe he's just got one bad injector. Why replace the entire set if he just got one bad one? Or maybe they all test fine and you got some other issues going on, maybe a compression issue with your motor or valve adjustment or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a useful tool for us and for the customer. And we also use it for testing and calibrating our brand new injectors, our performance injectors.
Okay.
So anything from like 15% over up to 100% over. LB7 Cummins, LB7 Duramax through LMM. Cummins injectors, we do all that in-house.
Cool. What year Cummins do you guys...
Common rail, so 03 to present.
Sure.
We can do those.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's all going on right here?
Yeah.
It's a lot, Dan. And that's exciting because I know the more tools you have, the better you are to help your customer at the end of the day, to help answer all these questions.
Yep.
So basically, of course, I'm going to go back and kind of rescan the groceries on the 650 build, because I'm going to come back to you and we're going to make 700.
Okay.
We're going to make 750. We're going to
Yep.
keep working it up the ladder
Yep.
until we get to Josh Edge's truck, where we know we're at the bleeding edge of
Yep.
what anything should take.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a fun story when we get there.
Yeah.
Josh is a great guy. He's a truck puller, and
Yep.
he makes a gob of horsepower out of
Yep.
this LBZ.
Yeah, we got his truck here right now, actually.
Do ya?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, walking around the store here, there's a lot of trucks, a lot of metal on the yard, and looks to be a pretty exciting season coming up.
Yeah.
I'm excited about drag racing and truck pulling, just in general, for the summer. It's finally here.
Yeah.
And we know that 650 horse can be easily, hit. But you kind of make it sound easy. You just say, it's just do this and do that and do this. But at the end of the day, you got a job that even if you're getting paid, $25 an hour, it's still a big commitment for your customer.
Yeah.
Because he's working his ass off to pay for his truck.
Yep.
Have a girlfriend, a wife, a family, all this other stuff. Not hopefully all of them, but
Right.
Basically to pour all of this money into their truck, they have to know these things up front. And that was why I wanted to get you on the show, because I know that you can handle that sort of build like nothing. You make it easy.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day when I was selling trucks at Autoland, and I was just a beginner truck puller, and I had no idea what to do, and you were the guy that helped me out personally.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
I mean that because without the little things, that you told me to do to my truck, I would have never been able to take it to the level where it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I started truck pulling in 2009. And actually 2008 I did a couple pulls, but really hit it hard in 2009. And every pull I go to, I'd pull and I would watch the video, afterwards and study the truck. How far did the front end come up when I was going down the track, or were all 4 tires spinning, and all that kind of stuff. And it really helps you, dial in the suspension setup with the truck and really be able to plant that power, where to put weight on the truck. And, and then I see, newcomers, come into the sport, and, they ask me questions like, well, what should I do to my truck? Should I run sled stops or suspension stops? Where should I put the weight on my truck? And it's like, well, what I found works the best is put the weight here, yes, run suspension stops at this level, stuff like that.
So you can help them in their competition build, and that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
I look around your office here, and there's a beautiful picture of the Mistress here, which is tell us about the Mistress.
Yeah, the Mistress, that's my 2005 Chevy 2500 truck. I bought that in 2007, and not too long after I bought it, I started, hopping it up a little bit with, tuning and exhaust and air intake, and that's the truck that I took to all the county fairs in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, pulling in the street diesel class in 2009. Then at the end of 2009, she bent a couple rods, so we decided to build the motor and make it a full-time pull truck. And it started off as 3.0, but back when 3.0 was 1,000 horse, I guess.
Yeah.
And then as
Boy, how old are you, Dan? You're dating yourself here.
I'm 30 years old.
I know, you're dating yourself.
But yeah, let's see here. Where was I?
You were talking about the Mistress, you bent a rod, and then you were 3.0.
So then we went to the 2.6 class.
Okay.
As the rules changed over the years, the 2.6 class, the way the truck was set up, just fit better. And we got multiple points championships over the years with it, and it was just a fun truck. And my wife Heather, she's got a 2.5 truck. It's a 2002 Duramax with a ZF6 manual, and she did very well with that truck from 2012 to 15. So, but 2016 we decided to move our shop from my dad's farm in Marengo to McChesney Park here. So we put the pull trucks on hold and decided to build the business. So
nice. You got to focus on what's important.
Yep.
And word is that Heather's gonna you're gonna pull Heather's truck, or maybe a few times on the track this year.
Yeah, over the last couple of years we have been gathering up some parts and whatnot to put the truck back together. So we're hoping to bring it back out this year and pull in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin area.
And that truck is known as Hank?
Yes.
Okay, Hank the Tank. I've pulled with Hank back in the day. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, a couple times. That truck is
it was a mean truck.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. I'm glad to see you getting back into it. Mm-hmm. We're gonna keep working up the ladder as far as these builds. We're gonna keep taking it to the next level, and we're gonna do it with you. So appreciate your time, Dan.
Yep.
You said HSP. I can't get Michael Graves' image out of my head from his orange intercooler piping.
Oh yeah.
You said HSP. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yep.
And, so it's pretty neat to learn a lot about what you got going on here at the store. Yeah. And we look forward to having you on again.
All right. Sounds good.
Don't forget, diesel fans, make sure and call Dan's Diesel Performance. 815-977-5865. Call him if you're looking for do a truck build, anything mild, wild, maintenance, repair, engine builds, tons of different things those guys do. Just give them a call or go to dansdieselperformance.com. They've got a great website. Tons of things are on there as far as products and services and all those things. And they'll make sure and hook you up. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.